Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. There's just far too much material in there. I don't think I'll be able to get through all of it. I was interested to hear Aaron Gilmore describing himself as a major player in the electricity industry. I think the state-owned enterprises regard themselves as major players in the electricity industry. I'm not sure that anybody would ever have regarded Mr. Gilmore as a major player in the electricity industry. I know, of course, in his little world he invented electricity, and we congratulate him for that. And we're most grateful to the people of Christchurch for delivering him to this House so that we can all benefit from the huge knowledge that he brings. Mr. Speaker, I want to talk about a few of the things that Aaron Gilmore spoke about before I go back to talking about the Electricity Authority. He talked about new generation being stuck by the RMA. I wonder if he could give us an example of an electricity generation project that has been stopped by the RMA. Oh, there's none. He can't come up with a single one. Give me one now. I've got plenty of time. Just name one. Just name one. Anyone will do. Yeah. Well, come on then. Give us one. Just name one. Name one. He can't name. Aaron Gilmore says the RMA is responsible for bogging down all of the electricity generation, and he cannot name a single project that was delayed by the RMA. Cannot name one that was delayed by the RMA. So let's be clear about what the RMA does when it comes to electricity generation. It says that if a generator wants to dam a river or build a wind farm in someone's backyard, the people who are going to be affected by that get a chance to have a say. They get a chance to have a say, and Aaron Gilmore thinks that's a bad idea. I don't. I happen to think that if there's going to be a major infrastructural development that's going to impact on rivers or on people's backyards or on the environment, that in fact New Zealanders should have a chance to have a say on that. It's a disappointment that the national government and the people like Aaron Gilmore don't seem to think that's the case. Aaron Gilmore talked about a lower price rise path. Well, isn't that a major turnaround from National's pre-election rhetoric when they were talking about lowering power prices for New Zealanders? Up and down the country, they were talking, and meet the candidates' meetings up and down the country, they were giving people the impression that if they elected a national government that was ambitious for New Zealand, that somehow the power prices were going to come down. They're not talking about that anymore now that they're on the Treasury benches driving around in the BMWs. Nowadays, they're talking about a lower power price path. A lower power price path. And he claims, of course, that power prices haven't increased as much under the national government. Two big reasons I can give him for that. The first is it's rained quite a lot. And when the hydro lakes are full, the power price doesn't go up as much, because hydroelectricity, if there's lots of water, hydroelectricity is actually quite cheap. So it's rained a lot, so they're claiming credit for the rain. I think that the government, Jerry Brownlee, these days tries to claim responsibility for an awful lot of things these days, but I don't think that he can claim credit for the rain. The second thing is that the Maui gas issue has largely been addressed. So the Maui gas price was kept artificially low by a long-term contract entered into many decades ago. That is probably, I'm almost certain it was before I was born, that artificial restriction on the price of gas has now come off. Because as the field diminished, the restrictions on that came off, and new gas is coming online, which is a good thing, but the new gas that's coming online is more expensive than the Maui gas. That has been one of the biggest contributors to the increase in electricity prices over the past decade. That was largely dealt with, and the flow-on effect of that had largely come in by the time National took office. So they cannot claim credit for the fact that that was all dealt with under the previous Labour government. But, Mr. Chair, I want to come back now to the Electricity Authority and to dealing with some of the mechanics around the Electricity Authority, and then I want to talk about the code, and in particular some of the issues that could be addressed around the code. So the first thing I want to talk about is the makeup of the Electricity Authority, because one of the things that I'm concerned about is that with the way the authority's been established, the way it's going to function, consumers, particularly domestic consumers, don't get a look in anywhere. Nowhere at all in the makeup of the Electricity Authority or in its functions really are the views of domestic consumers going to be sought, and they're not going to have that avenue to complain and to go back to the authority where they think that the electricity market is behaving unfairly and so on. And that's one of the things that we think is wrong. And the domestic consumers are the ones that are being done over. Look at the power price path. It's got massive increases for domestic consumers in the last decade or so, but commercial and industrial users have not gone up by as much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Oh, Chris Hipkins.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So domestic consumers have been done over with power price increases. Commercial and industrial users nowhere near as much, and the Electricity Authority is not going to be able to do anything about that. Now, there are some ironies in this piece of legislation as well, because Jerry Brownlee comes down and tells the House it's all about increasing competition. Well, of course, one of the things that this bill does is it entrenches Transpower's role as the system operator. Currently, Transpower is a system operator on contract with the Electricity Commission, but the Electricity Commission could change system operator if it chose to do so. This bill effectively entrenches Transpower as a monopoly as the system operator. So in a bill that's supposed to be increasing competition, the government is entrenching the monopoly that Transpower has as the system operator. And what sort of an incentive is that to reduce costs, which is a very, very good point by my colleague David Parker. There will now be no oversight from a government body of Transpower in its role as the system operator. And so there won't be the drive for efficiencies that there could have been. The Electricity Commission won't be leading on the market operator to make sure that there are increases in efficiency. So that's another problem that I have with that. I want to talk now particularly about the Industry Participation Code and the relevant clause of the bill that deals with the Industry Participation Code is clause 35, and it talks about what the code may contain. And it talks about it may promote the code can contain stuff that are necessary or desirable to promote competition in the electricity industry, the reliable supply of electricity to consumers, the efficient operation of the electricity industry, performance by the authority of its functions in any other matter, etc., etc. One of the things that submitters argued was that the Electricity Authority, or the Electricity Commission as it is now, the government effectively, should be taking a much more proactive position when it comes to smart meters. And the government have dragged their heels on this. So the question I think everybody at home is going to be asking is, why should we have any confidence that the government are going to use this code to deliver a better deal for consumers when there is a really obvious issue that they could pick up right now and deal with, which is the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment has already given them a report telling them how it could be done, and they're ignoring that. They could pick up this issue of smart meters and immediately deliver something that would be of real benefit to consumers. And instead they're turning their backs on that. Jerry Brownlee is ignoring that issue altogether. And as a result, what we've got is the electricity companies up and down the country installing dumb smart meters that don't have the technology that they could have if there was a standard in place. They're also installing smart meters that are unique to individual suppliers. And that is a major problem, because at my house, which I moved into a year ago, the meter was installed by Genesis, but I had my power with Meridian. Meridian cannot access the technology in the smart meter that's in my house. So they are still sending somebody round to my house once every 2 months to do a manual power reading, because the technology that's being installed isn't universal. There's no universal standard. If the Jerry Brownlee actually wants to promote the ability of consumers to switch power companies and reduce costs, clearly that's something that he could do straight away. It would mean then that if I decided that Genesis or Meridian or whoever I was with wasn't the best company for me, I could switch to another company. They could still tap into the smart meter technology that I have there. They wouldn't need to send someone around to my house to read the meter manually every 2 months, which, by the way, is a bugbear as well, because my electricity use changes from month to month, as many New Zealand households do. The predictive, the estimate reading is never even anywhere near close to what I've used. It's either wildly over or wildly under the electricity that I've used, and that is a problem that New Zealanders up and down the country face with having these estimate readings every second month. All of that can be done away with if a smart metering system is put in place and properly regulated. But instead what we've got is the government aren't doing anything about this, so the electricity companies are installing dumb smart meters that aren't where the knowledge behind them, the system behind them is proprietary to the company that installed the meter, and that's actually going to dampen down competition. So what faith should New Zealanders have that this Electricity Industry Participation Code, as it's going to be legislated and this bill is going to be effective when the government have already taken a major issue where they could have delivered some real benefit to New Zealanders, and they've turned their back on it, and they've chosen